Member states at the BRICS Business Council Trade Fair have emphasized the importance of securing Africa's energy future through green energy and renewables. South Africa faces an acute energy crisis that has hampered growth and hurt business operations. Our business anchor, Motheo Khoaripe, joins us from the Gallagher Convention Centre this afternoon. Motheo, lovely to catch up with you this afternoon. Just give us a brief of this trade exhibition and the attendance.
Thank you very much, Hugo. Of course, this BRICS Business Council Forum, or fair rather, in terms of trade, is being held here to share ideas amongst the BRICS member countries on solving different issues, but also creating the business opportunities so more trade can happen between the BRICS bloc. Of course, the main issue for South Africa has been our energy. We do know it's well documented how Eskom is inconsistently supplying power to many industries and consumers in the country. So there have been ideas being shared here by delegates on around how to fix it and how to get South Africa into a better energy secure nation in the future. I'm now joined by one of the delegates that was attending this particular energy session. We're joined by the Miyelani Holeni, who is the group advisor at Ntiyiso Consulting. From your view, what is Africa's opportunity in terms of securing energy with BRICS countries, and what are some of the opportunities that we stand to gain from the likes of China and India?
Yeah, I think the big issue here is that, having at least understanding the BRICS side of things, South Africa in many ways represents, Africa. We also know about the Africa Free Trade Agreement that has been entered into, but we also know that, the majority, if not most of the minerals that are going to power the green economy are on the African continent. If you look at what the DRC has, South Africa has, and all the other different countries such as the minerals like vanadium, titanium, and all of those lithiums and so on are predominantly on the African continent. So actually we sit on the pound seat in that we can start, driving the agenda with regards to how those countries that are going to be manufacturing the PVs and all the components that go into the green economy would have to buy from us as an African continent. So it's a huge opportunity from a mining point of view. But from a localization point of view as well, it's also a big opportunity, as well as the beneficiation of those minerals so that, they go to those other countries who manufacture, at least in a beneficiated stage.
Then, Miyelani, when we look at our peers in the likes of China who've already moved to, green energy in terms of batteries and electricity and electrifying cars as well, what lessons can we get from them in order to make sure we move with the rest of the world and not be left behind?
What we need as well as a continent, and I'll put it simply as a continent, is the ability to industrialize. So we've seen it, on the back of how the electricity industry developed in South Africa, the coal mining, but the industrialization that went with it, because the financing side in terms of the development finance institutions that would fund, all of this. So what we need to learn from those countries like China is how they put capital behind, their development and industrialization. China, for instance, is the #1 PV manufacturer. India is said to be gearing itself to be the second largest manufacturer of PVs, which are critical for the solar market. But for us, it's the industrialization which requires that we put capital behind it, but we ensure that, we drive the industry and understand the value chain as opposed to wanting to do everything in the value chain.
Now, it's very interesting in terms of the green hydrogen. That is an opportunity for South Africa in this sense. We've seen in Saldanha Bay also the projects from Sasol. But for the rest of the continent, it's not just a BRICS for South Africa. For the rest of the continent, how do we keep the lights on and make sure that that industrialization and economic growth actually happens?
So a key point when we talk about the just energy transition is that different countries will experience this transition in a different ways. Some countries don't actually have even a transition because they still need to build, the base load so that they can carry their electricity requirements. So in this case, some of the countries have an opportunity to be able to build new smart grids that are going to accommodate the new technologies that are coming forward. The economies that already had power have a lot of work to also retrofit with regards to moving from a high carbon to a low carbon emission, but to also incorporate the new technologies that are coming on board. So it is different ways that, the different, countries are going to experience it. But the big thing is that if there's inter-Africa trade between the various countries and exchange of knowledge and skills, it will fast-track the development of the industries, as well as making sure that the research that is being done within the hydrogen green energy space is fast-tracked and can be shared and replicated amongst the different countries. Because the beauty of it is that each and every country has some mineral in some form or shape that was going to be helpful and will drive, the low-carbon future.
South Africa's problem is still quite a complex one. We have coal that mainly provides the power that we have, but we still want to move to clean energy. How do we do that without killing off another industry that we've been so heavily relied on?
Look, in one of the sessions earlier, I think the point has rung home that you don't kill the industry that is producing electricity in a stable manner for you, but you rather focus on creating the new until it becomes stable, where you can start transitioning and moving to a green energy type environment. So, but for now, we are still hungry for energy, as we can see that we are suffering quite a lot of load shedding. But the other thing about it is that it should not be treated only just when there's a crisis. So let's not wait for a crisis, but rather have a predetermined plan that is going to drive us into that future, which accommodates all of the different energy sources. Your gas, your fossil fuel will still be a big matter there. The wind, for instance, but that depends as well on the expansion of the grid, which is something that must be done as a matter of urgency, especially to areas which, for instance, enjoy a lot of sun, like the Northern Cape, but the grid is not as well developed within there. So we need to focus our efforts in terms of developing the grid to the point where it is strong enough. And when the grid is developed along the borders, as we know that we are able to export energy, it's one of the ways that we can also trade with the African countries. And we know as well that the hydro Inga as well is one of the big ones that are coming up. So that we need to be able to drive the hydro energy there.
All right, so that was Miyelani Holeni, the Group Chief Advisor at Miyelani Group Advisors, Ntiyiso Consulting Group, do forgive me there. But there are robust conversations happening here in terms of the digital economy, but also infrastructure in the country to make sure that this economy is driven through this BRICS partnership.